Ready?
Ready. So our topic, we have a topic. We're calling it Armor of the Dharma. And this came from Nelly and I do some free form writing, and this is going to be a little bit of an extension, this talk of that, a conversation between us. And I'll read the first few lines of what I wrote, and then we'll riff from there. How about that, Nelly?
Sounds good.
Okay. Take off your armor when you meditate. We want to develop access to the vulnerability of our lives. But does that mean we're going in naked? It can feel like that sometimes when we meet parts of ourselves that are hurt or broken.
So then we're going to go on to talk about how we might need some armor sometimes. And again, playing off of this, when Linda wrote, she wrote the armor of the Dharma, and I go, oh, I love those words. And so we're kind of just playing around with them. This is not the definitive talk on this or anything like that. It's more creative and playful and serious too. So, we wear armor to protect us from getting hurt, or we armor ourselves to protect ourselves from getting hurt, and, to defend ourselves, and sometimes from the meanness of the outside world, and sometimes from the meanness of the internal world, though armoring ourselves from that is a more complicated situation.
Right. Right. And we could consider the way we armor ourselves as defenses, defenses that are protective boundaries. And at times they support us, and they're something that we wear with honor and with need. But they can often become habits that then are hard to soften in situations when you don't need that kind of armor.
I like that, hard to soften. So really we're talking about softer armor, not the hard stuff, but the softer armor. And yeah, and what Linda was saying, she was talking more from the world of psychotherapy or even psychoanalysis, Freud's definition of all these defenses. And, we've talked about them before. We won't go into it now, but the most salient point is that we need them. But actually, we need to be discerning about when we need them and how to use them.
Right, right. Because the typical historical knight in shining armor, where everything gets, bounced off of, we're really looking more for armor that are not expecting, I would say, armor that's going to shield us from the pain, from the hurt in life, from the situations that we call dukkha. And that's one of the teachings of the Dharma, is that we're going to encounter dukkha. And that the armor is not necessarily going to prevent the pain of the dukkha in our lives.
That is a big fantasy, though, that maybe is very hard to change, that if we just did this, we wouldn't hurt anymore, that we wouldn't feel any pain, that we transcend all that. That's not our teaching. That's not. I love capital 5-4.
Oh, yeah. We'll just do a mute. Make sure, let's see.
So you got in?
Oh, I can see it, Tracy. I'll mute you. There you go. You got it. Great.
Okay, let's see, where were we? Okay, so we don't want you to expect or think it's beneficial to be basically numb to dukkha, but rather it's another way of being with it that allows us to be resilient, but be resilient with it. And we teach to that often.
Right, and there are many teachings. This is the plethora of teachings in Buddhism that we could talk about here that would become the armor that would give us resilience in the face of dukkha, in the face of pain. But the teaching, we're going to focus on one teaching today, and that's the teaching of the 5 strengths, or 5 capacities, or the 5 powers in Buddhism.
And, there's been some teachings on this already. Aaron, who teaches sometimes at the Daily Online, has been teaching ever since we did a retreat last June 2024. I guess it's still 2024, isn't it now?
It is.
Just for a few more days. But at any rate, in June, we gave a retreat, and that was the focus of the retreat. So we're going to, in the Dharma talks to come, focus in more depth on these 5 strengths and capacities or powers. But today we're just going to touch on them.
Right. And touch on them in a playful way. So this is our creative process this morning of looking at what kind of armor each strength would offer us. So again, not set in stone. You won't find this in the Pali Canon. This is something that we hope will make sense or kind of inspire you to think about the 5 strengths a little bit differently. And I'm wondering, should I just name the 5 strengths first? Yeah.
Sure.
So the first strength, and they're not in a linear order. These are just a list of 5. The first is confidence and faith. The second is diligence and care. The third is Sati, often translated as mindfulness, but we translate it more often as awareness and reflective awareness. Samadhi is the 4th. And Samadhi, go ahead.
No, yeah, I like to do an English translation.
Yes.
Which my favorite translation, there's a lot of translations for each of these words, but my favorite word for samadhi is inward collectedness.
Yeah. Being drawn inward, collecting. And concentration is another common word used. And then the fifth is wisdom.
Which I'd say this whole path is hopefully cultivating. And yeah, so let's go now into our little silliness. Well, when I was lying in bed this morning thinking out this talk about armor, I came to this, common thing that you hear about, which is a bulletproof vest. So of course I looked it up and I thought, oh, so it's when we translate it as a kind of bulletproof, how could confidence be like a bulletproof vest? That's what the question. And I thought of it as absorbing the impact and maybe preventing the real penetration of the arrows of dukkha. It's not that it doesn't hurt, but it doesn't pierce and impact quite as hard, quite as vigorously. And having some confidence and faith that this path does lead there.
I guess I'll just jump off the next one. I mean, because after your bulletproof vest, and we're not suggesting you put all this gear on to meditate. The next one would be a blanket. We would look at diligence and care as a blanket or a coat. One of those blankets you can turn into a coat and you can wear it with you. And that, in a sense, we're choosing what we cover ourselves with care and with diligence, and some kind of balance between those two. Do we need to weave a full blanket, a new blanket, or can we borrow one from a friend that we know worked and that's light enough and will prevent certain weather conditions? Cold is usually what you wear a blanket for.
Yeah. And the next one, Sati, awareness, mindfulness. We just played around. I sort of feel like that's like the whole ground of this path, that, cultivating awareness. Along with awareness comes all these other possibilities and all this other knowledge. And so I played around with it. Those are the shoes that we're wearing. That awareness, it's just like it's ground.
Yeah. Which then kind of leads us to samadhi, or this inward collected state or concentration. And we wanted, in a sense, to where yellow glasses, those yellow tinted glasses that protect you from certain blue light, red light, that lights that overstimulate you, that basically take you down a wrong path, that could be too much for your nervous system. So that we would want you to be wearing protective glasses for samadhi.
And also, I mean, the other thing we could say about samadhi is sometimes when I'm in those kind of altered states, because I also think of samadhi as being an altered state that arises in meditation pretty naturally, shall we say, organically in our practice. But it sometimes helps me see clearer, just like glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not as fuzzy.
Right. See different angles too.
See different angles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And wisdom is the hat that I wear with reflective thread as I go walking at night. So it's kind of like this wisdom to know what we need. And when I put the hat on, you can't see the reflective thread until like flashlights shines on you or car lights shine on you. And then it kind of, you can be seen and taken care of and not hurt. And the kind of wisdom that we need to know, when do we need to wear that hat? And how will it protect us? From others, usually.
So if that didn't really make sense to you in terms of the trends, just stay tuned and we'll talk about them more linearly and less metaphorically in the days to come.
Right.
So, but we're not suggesting you need to be
Yeah.
on guard. It's not that kind of armor. You don't, and what we're rather suggesting is the Dharma does protect us. It is an ethical safeguard. It is a refuge. And as it seeps further and further into your understanding, in other words, as you become wiser in the teachings, we believe you actually are safer.
Okay, we'll end the Dharma talk here.
And I am going